Hi, my name is Cortney Bigelow. I'm a community marketing manager at Tune. At Tune, we build mobile marketing solutions or technology for mobile marketers, so they're able to manage their campaigns, see what's working, see what's not. Specifically at Tune, I've been there since the beginning. This is my 5th year, and we've been doing a lot of cool things over the last year to support women in tech and at Tune. Internally, we've created an initiative calling We Lead, and we just held in December a kind of casual, informal event for everyone at our company, whoever wanted to come to talk about what diversity means to us and how we can all work better at Tune. We've had partnerships with Ada, Dog Bites, Highline Public Schools, kind of been doing tours of students, females that are interested in tech coming to Tune. And recently, well, this last year, we've put out a program, a scholarship program that was actually an idea from our twin founders, Lucas and Lee, called Tune House. And Tune House is a year-long scholarship program for female undergraduates at the University of Washington pursuing computer science and IT. So we have 8 scholars living at the house, ranging from freshman to senior level, and our goal is to create a community where female technologists can thrive. So I will pass it along to Wendy.
Sure. So I'm Wendy McIntosh. I'm the Director of Global Talent for Chef Software here in Seattle. Our company is about 5.5 years old now, and I've been with the company for about 2.5 of those years. Started when the company was about 40 to 50 employees roughly, and we're about 265 people now, so we've grown quite a bit in the last few years. I was the first and only recruiter to come to the company, and I'm the only recruiter and the only person who actually works in recruiting. But we've grown and we've had quite some success with diversity and hiring. So I'll share that with you as we go through the program tonight. It sounds like there's some amazing things going on in this city and at different companies. So I don't profess to be the expert in this. I'm just the practitioner that tries to put it to work and make success out of it. And I've been really blessed with a super strong executive team and leadership team at my company, but also just some huge support from the community and from other companies that have really helped me in terms of partnering and just sponsoring and kind of giving me that kind of push to go and continue what I'm doing. Our diversity initiative is really about diversity and inclusion. We don't leave out inclusion ever because we feel you can have diversity, but if you don't have inclusion, diversity really doesn't matter. And so we really have worked hard as a company to build that inclusion program, and I'll share that with you a little bit later in the evening.
Great. My name is Kalpana Narayanaswamy. I head engineering for EnergySavvy, which is a software company that's just 2 doors down this way. We help homes and businesses become energy efficient, and so we sell our software to utilities, and they use it to market their programs, help their customers get on board with initiatives, help drive down energy use and things that they can do to manage their whole system to be able to not only make it energy efficient for the environment, but also in terms of cost cutting, so they don't have to go put new power plants and push solar and other types of renewables into the communities. I've been in the industry for about 20 years. Started off as an engineer. And I've been with EnergySavvy for about 3.5 years, and we are about a 6.5-year-old company. When I started, we were about 20 people. Which is not true just for EnergySavvy, but I was the first woman in engineering. And since then, we have grown the engineering side of the house by 30%. Of female engineers, and so a big move for us. We also, one of my peers and I, we started ADA, which is the Program School for Women, and so I'm on the board of ADA as well. And as we go through the conversation today, I'll certainly talk to you about my experiences and how the community has changed over the last 20 years.
Okay, so I guess we'll start off kind of just with some facts, some statistics, current statistics. So when you look at the general tech industry, if you're looking at the larger players like Google, Facebook, Twitter, 30% is kind of the standard or average for female across the workforce. So 30%. When you look at females that are filling technical roles, at Facebook we're at, Google we're at 17%, Facebook we're at 15%, Twitter 10%. When you look at the more general roles, HR, sales, marketing, maybe not sales as much, there's 50-50 split. So I would like to know, for you guys at your roles at your company, what was the state of gender diversity? Or what has been the state before you came on, and what kind of progress have you made to increase those numbers?
Do you want to say?
Sure. So within, at Chef, and the reason we started this initiative, when I first joined the company and I walked into the building, I realized that they were having meetings in the ladies' restroom. And it was because it was the only private room in the entire office because there were no women. And it was pretty much, there were 3 women in the office that came and went. They were part-time employees, and they were really, they weren't there very often, and they were not really considered, active. And so the ladies' room was being used as a meeting room, or even as a men's room. And that's how we kind of started that was what kind of woke me up to the reality of what our situation was. Within engineering, we didn't have many women at all. I think it was 3 women total that were in random roles, but they were more junior, very junior, entry-level roles. And we quickly recognized that we couldn't really build a business without having a gender parity, and so we started very quickly on saying, let's really use the ladies' room for what it's meant to be used for, but also let's start really looking at how we're hiring and what we're doing to make sure that we're hiring based on our values of our company and core competencies, and make sure that we have a really balanced talent card when we're starting to look at a slate of candidates. And so that's what we started to do. So our numbers were really low. I would say they were probably around 3% total workforce, and as we grew over time, today we're at around 28% women, and that's a huge growth for us, but it's not our goal. So we've set some pretty kind of meaty goals and big goals for ourselves, but I listen to some of the industry goals and I think, you know what, I'm so glad I don't think about that too much and I don't put that on my radar, because we don't want to settle there. Like, that's just not where we're going to benchmark ourselves. And so we're really kind of competing against just ourselves.
When I first started EnergySavvy, it was a much smaller company. So we were about 20 folks, and they were women. I wouldn't say that there weren't any women at EnergySavvy. We probably had about, let's say, 5 women. But they were not an engineer. And I also joined the company where the rest of the management team were founders in the company. So not only was I coming in as an outside management into the company, but I was also coming in as the only sole woman leader for the engineering organization. So when I got started, we had a lot of other problems to solve. We needed to hire up, we needed to build product, we needed to get to the market, and so a lot of the focus was on that. So I wouldn't say that getting more women into the workforce was our number one priority. It was like, let's go build a business. And it's also sad, but I have to say this, which is I'm so used to having my colleagues be men, and so it didn't seem a little, it wasn't very apparent, as in, it didn't seem like it was completely out of place either, because that was the trend, and that's what you see in the industry. And so I came in in November or something like that, and so we started hiring up. I had about 10 positions that I needed to fill in. And we came down to, at the end of Q1 the next year, and it was really hard to hire. And we were getting people in, but the market it's more competitive now, but it was competitive even 3 years ago. And so we were sitting and talking, and we're like, hey, what's going on here? We can't find any, first of all, we can get talent in, and second of all, whoever we get in, there is not a single, woman that's coming in through the pipeline here that kind of meets our bar. And so that's how we got started with Ada. We're like, you know what, we should just start a programming school for women, and we should just make this free, and we should train them up, and have them have the right characteristics. And so that's how Scott, and Scott's actually one of the founders of Ada, and I were, we're basically peers in the company. We got started, we found a couple other folks who, who had been through some of these classes, and we looked at what the problems were in terms of like, what was going on and why weren't women being successful. And so it was, one was training, two was having a support system, three was inclusion. And so, that's basically how we got started. And so that, I'd say the big initiative inside EnergySavvy was really to get Ada going and training up those people and bringing them in. And in the meantime, I got lucky. I found one or two people that I could hire into our teams who were women. And when the first class graduated, we got those interns into our teams, and culturally we're also set up to really support women a lot better than the traditional software company, which is it's not just we're a very collaborative atmosphere, and we're also very inclusive, and so we really wanted people to kind of be together, solving problems together. And so I think having that women network, having a woman leader, and having people who already cared for that diversity and that inclusion kind of was like our way, our secret sauce of getting this up there. And so, and once you have like 2 or 3, and it's like when we have more women candidates come in, we would put women on the loop. So, and have them talk about their experiences, and have them talk about how it was different. We actually had people from, we hired people across various different companies, and I wouldn't name any, but that were here, and they kind of contrasted how we would do things versus how things were done in other companies, and so that really worked out for us as well.
So you kind of spoke a little about the catalyst that spurred action for your organization. I guess you being in the bathroom and realizing there were meetings going on, and you seeing that there was obviously, you were one of the only females at the company, and also engineers. So you kind of talked about the steps. Ada Developers Academy was kind of your kickoff to making a change at EnergySavvy. Wendy, what would you say at Chef were the steps that you took once you noticed that there needed something to be done?
I think some of the key steps for us were just, first off, acknowledging it. We have 3 founders that work within the company, and we'll just call it out. They were middle-aged white guys with beards and tattoos. We see it all over the place. And I basically said that. I said, let's look around the room right now and let's talk about this. And it was a pretty crazy moment, like of just a reality check. And so that was sort of the trigger to it. And I think for me, I had nothing to lose, really. It was just basically saying, this is what I see and this is what I'm observing. Do you all see the same thing? And what are we going to do about it? And how are we going to address it? And so some of the triggers were really just acknowledging that we have been hiring kind of in this viral little way of hiring everybody like ourselves. And it was time to switch that up. And so getting that employee buy-in from the beginning, and having that sort of moment of, oh yeah, we all look alike. And I said, this can't continue, because let's just talk about what it means to our business as we grow and scale. And so that was the first thing. I think the other part of it was really starting to look at what are some of the channels and the different strategic things that we could be doing as a company to really think bigger than just who we are here in this room. And I think getting that employee buy-in is huge, because you start to change your process, you start to change your thinking, you start to change everybody talking, just the way they have their conversing. And so we agreed as a group, as an employee group, very early on, look, we're gonna be diverse, and we're gonna figure out what this looks like, and nobody has any secret sauce. There's no secret method to this. I don't think there's a playbook, but let's figure it out as a group and as a company. And let's build the best company we can. And so We switched up our hiring process. We started to really do competency-based interviewing, but also value-based interviewing. We used to have this term, well, this person's not a culture fit. You know what? There's no culture fit. That's not how we're gonna hire people. That is the worst term I think I can imagine right now, because that's basically hiring people just like ourselves. And we have to get away from that, right? And so we eliminated that terminology from just our basic every single day talking. And we really got around to what are the values of our company, and we got that buy-in from our leadership. Not only did we get it from our leadership, then it became one of our core initiatives as a company. And so we started talking about what are our core initiatives, and it fell into the top 3. And it became this sort of, okay, now we're addressing it at every all-hands meeting. And now we're starting to report on it, and it's becoming super open. Now we're shining this spotlight on it, and there's no hiding from the numbers and from the reality of what it is. But it was a really big moment for us as a company a year later to look and go, wow, there's a line in the ladies' bathroom. This is awesome. I mean, there were just simple moments. But it became, simple goals that we put together, and we started to recognize about, let's train everybody, let's get some education. No one here knows what we're talking about, but let's figure this out together. And so we started to go after, what resonates with engineering, because we're a true engineering, very engineering-centric company, a software development company. And so, what resonates with the engineers is data, is metrics, is the science behind all of this. And so we started to bring in some real, we have no budget for this, but we started to bring in some just people who knew what they were talking about when it came to just general diversity and what that meant for our workforce and how that could actually equate to sound business decisions ultimately as we grow. And so that's what we did. We started bringing in people to speak. We started to get that open dialogue. We started to talk really upfront about, we mandated that there was a woman on every single interview loop. We still have that, and we will always have that. We make sure that we have, on every single interview, if we have an opening, we have a very diverse slate. We never make a hiring decision without a very diverse slate. I think the other thing that we do is, and when I say that, if we've got 6 candidates, more than half of them are going to be diverse candidates. We've even identified roles where we must hire diverse candidates. It's just, that is part of our DNA now. And so we've made that kind of a mandate. We look at hiring the best, obviously, but we go into it with a very open mind. I think the other thing is we've really started to shine a spotlight on pay equity. And so we went immediately into, and especially in startups, I find this very common, is we've underpaid people. And there's some very big disparities there. And so really looking at what's that all about and why are we doing that. Being the only recruiter, I had some control over that because I could look at the compensation and I could say, we are underpaying these 4 people who have been here a long time, and we need to bring them up to what the scale is. And we need to make sure that we're paying all these women the same as we're paying the men. And we're just gonna do that throughout the entire company for every department in our company. It was a huge exercise, but it was so worth it because it started to make people, especially at our leadership level, go, absolutely. And in fact, they started to fight for it. Which made it just that much easier for me as a recruiter, but also as a leader in the company to be able to really support and believe in what we were doing. And now it's an open conversation, but it's also kind of expected. And when there's a team or a department that maybe is underrepresented, people start pointing it out. I don't even have to talk about it anymore. It's just a natural conversation around, wow, you really need to be thinking about, your diversity here. And so leaders within sales, leaders within consulting services, leaders in different countries are now getting called out for not having enough diversity, which is good and bad.
I think that's just kind of what it takes, right? An open dialogue, awareness, talking about it openly with your company, even if it's just one person that can bring it up to a potential leader who therefore can bring it up to an executive. Just conversation is huge. Just thinking back at Tune, we started, going back to the hiring culture fit, that was our word, culture fit, because we had two twin brothers, they hired their friends mostly, who became management team and were leading our company, and they all have all evolved into leadership roles. Luckily, one of those first employees was a female, so they've always kind of been aware of making sure, there's an even, or mostly even representation of both genders. But just once someone came on that was an outside view, who was now our director of recruiting, she saw the need to change the word culture fit, and it just takes one person, it takes awareness. But I'm interested to hear kind of how, how you went about it. So you had a lot of it seems like pull, being on the leading team, but
Yeah.
did you have to make a case for this, or how was the process for getting buy-in?
Yeah, so actually it was very similar to what Wendy was saying. It all comes down to what is the priorities of the company, and what does the management team want to set as, here are the goals that we want to do that's outside of getting to X revenue and building X product. It's like, what is the kind of company that we want to build? And so, as long as you have that buy-in and you have the dedication to say, okay, we are going to pay enough attention to this, the problem, it just becomes execution at that point. And so our challenge is really not so much as not getting attention or not having enough prioritization on this, but it's more so about finding enough talent and the right talent. I mean, there's certainly a very good point being made about culture fit, but there's also it doesn't necessarily have to be culture fit from a culture standpoint, but there's also how people think about how to solve problems. We are a very pragmatic company, and so we want to go get things done, and we iterate all the time. Excuse me. And so there are companies that are more more like big design and kind of want to go and solve more deeper problems and take a longer time to get to market. And so for us, it's finding that match of being able to engineer things with the same philosophies that we have. And so that's been more of our challenge. And I think Wendy really hit on some really good points over there, which is getting people aware. It wasn't so much as people notice that they're only men, or that there isn't enough women, which I think that was already there at EnergySavvy right from the get-go. But it's all about the little behavioral traits, right, that people all don't recognize, which is we have all hands and we do sprint demos where we show and tell. And so culturally, we would, when there would be somebody speaking, the whole team would kind of participate and talk over each other. And so when we first hired a couple of women, when they were presenting and the same thing happened, it was there was this feeling that hey, you didn't let me finish my sentence. It's like recognizing those nuances, recognizing that people are sensitive to different things, and that as we have a diverse culture, we should care about how we make everybody feel inclusive, even if it's silly to some extent, right? And so I think those were the behavior traits that we had to more change, less so about saying, hey, it's prioritization and getting more women into the workforce.
So you both kind of talk about values. So when you began at Chef and EnergySavvy, have the values evolved over time? Because I know as a small startup company, you're often focused on growth and making sure your employees are happy. I know when I think about our values or our code, which is what we call it, it's very focused on the employees. How did diversity add its way into the values, or was it right from the beginning, I guess?
So we created the values based on this conversation around diversity. So it actually kind of got baked into the values as we created them. And that was a beautiful thing, because I don't know about you, but we've all worked at companies that already have values created, and so coming in and being able to kind of cherry pick and be able to kind of construct what we needed to, it was a great process, just because it started early and it was fairly organic. Today we use our values in so many different ways, but they have evolved and they've changed, and as we grow to be a bigger company, I know they'll continue to change. So they're dynamic, and while I think the core values will always remain the same, I think there will be some that will be inserted in, just as our DNA kind of changes and our culture evolves as well. I think we're also finding that our values change depending on where we're located. As we open more offices around the world, we're starting to realize we have to be thoughtful around that. And so that's a big piece of it as well.
What would you say at EnergySavvy, the values and how it's evolved?
Our core values of, the founders really had a few pieces of core values that was there, and those are like very sacred. And so I think we have carried that forward, and we've done a really good job of creating that, creating a company around those values, which is inclusion, transparency, honesty, being able to accept feedback and make those changes. And it's coming in to do really great work. And so that's, I think those have been there from the get-go. I think we certainly recognize as we've grown is that, we don't, first, I certainly, when I came on board, I probably was the only non-white person in the room. And so it wasn't just about, women, but it was also, we were not diverse in other ways too. We were very culturally the same. And so, so I think that those are the things that we're opening up to. It's not just about women, but it's about getting people of a diverse mix. It's being able to have a culture that's inclusive of everybody. It's also the LGBT crowd. I mean, it's like having people who are diverse in many ways, and not just getting more women into the workforce. It's also we have done our part of making sure that we are being very fair about how our pay scales are working. I actually did a similar exercise, and I guess I have a recruiter, and my recruiter is more focused on bringing candidates in, and so I'm more focused on making sure that the compensation and the bands are all similar. And so we went through a similar exercise as well, which is we had people who were early in the cycle that were certainly off the pay scale than what our new hires were. And so we look at it from all of those different angles because we want to treat all our employees fairly, and at the end of the day, we want to have a diverse culture because a diverse culture is what creates good product.
That's great. So talking about the values and the progress you've made with your companies, what would you say the obstacles are that you've had to overcome and the challenges, whether it be getting buy-in or, I guess, trying to program with other members of the company?
I'm going to let Wendy go because I'm getting a little bit of both.
Okay.
So what have been some of the challenges and obstacles of creating a diversity program and just being able to build a company? I think the biggest one has been the talent pool, right? We all hear about it, we all talk about it. Where do we find this diverse talent pool, and where are they hiding? And then there's that other debate on the other side of the argument that is, there's plenty of people out there, and and we just need to hire them. And I find, that's been our biggest challenge. I think that is trying to make sure that we are hiring the right people to set them up for success and put them in a place where they can really come in and thrive. And we talk about that, and for us, that is at every level of our business, from entry level all the way up to our board of directors. And so, like I said, we preserve roles just for diverse candidates. I've got a board opening right now that I'm recruiting for, but I will also say I haven't had the same experience of not being able to find diverse talent. I find a ton of it, but I also have to recognize that there's some challenges. Maybe Seattle's not the place they want to live. Maybe my challenge is getting them to relocate. Fortunately, we've tried to overcome that by being open and hiring people wherever they live. If they live in Hawaii, we're hiring them. If they, meet our criteria, and so we have more than 50% of our workforce doesn't come into an office; they're distributed. And that has been a beautiful thing for us because we've been able to keep a high bar and still be able to have that very diverse workforce. But it's a challenge because there's other challenges than managing a diverse workforce, having to put people through interviews that maybe they can't come to Seattle, and so we got to figure that out. We've had to overcome a lot of those challenges as well.
Yeah, as far as obstacles go, certainly getting a pipeline, as healthy as a pipeline, of non-men candidates has been a challenge. And the second part of it is that when we do find good candidates, they have 5 different jobs. And so, being able to, be the first and being able to post those candidates is a challenge in the city as well. But that outside of the pipeline and being able to find candidates, there's still, one of the things that I have in my team right now that I'd like to solve is that I have a lot of women engineers who are more in the junior to mid-range. I don't have a whole lot of senior folks, and so I have one lead that is woman, but past that, everybody else is in their start of the career, and so being able to it's less about getting people in, but it's more about having the right mix, and making sure that there's opportunity for everybody to be there. Now, we don't particularly hold to say we're holding certain amount of percentages or certain amount of women that need to come in. We're not there yet. We certainly are more in the place of we want to have we want to have a talent pool, and we're more in the front end of it, which is making sure that the talent pool has enough of a mix, so we don't really have to hold diversity heads at the hiring level, at the team level. And so that's, I think those would be my main obstacles.
So acquiring a diverse workforce at both of your companies, how would you say you've tackled retaining the talent that you have now acquired at your companies, and how do you measure the success? Is it retention? Is it promotion? How do you make sure that these new talent are progressing within the company?
Yeah, absolutely. The first and foremost is providing that support system, so people can when we have candidates come in and we have new women engineers, that they have a place that they can go have that conversation. We actually do women-only events, which it's kind of organic. It's not company sponsored, but it's just a way of building that that sense of inclusion and sense of support system that they can go after. Past that, it's really being able to provide the opportunity, and so there's different areas of growth. We pay a lot of attention to. Not just saying here's the career trajectory of a particular role, but here's a career trajectory of what you as an individual need to get to. And so, our goal setting process is around personal growth, and so that's huge. It might sound a little crazy, but we hardly have any attrition going on at EnergySavvy. People love it there. We have a really, really good culture. And so it's less about, retention from a perspective of getting people, of having people stay, but it's more about, giving people the opportunity to grow. We are a young company, and, as our team gets more mature, we just want to make sure that, we have that trajectory going on. Now, we have not had, and this is I was just talking to my benefits person today, and we have not had a woman who's gone to in engineering who has been in the maternity cycle. Actually going through the raising a family bar. We've had a lot of men who've had kids, and so there's the paternity side of PTO that's there. We haven't tested our maternity and our maternity and basically our benefits that would work for women who have families, and so that is something that we're going to be looking at as our employees kind of like as they age and as their life changes happens, how are we going to adapt to that?
For sure, we can definitely attest to that. Just all starting off in mid-20s at Tune, we are now hitting this baby boom,
Right.
and luckily we have just put, you know, we have a nursing room, and it's just all these other things that you don't think about when you're a small company,
Exactly.
that's primarily men, but,
And
but
we're
yeah,
going
you
through
learn,
that same transition.
yeah, you learn as you go, you reiterate as needed, and, but yeah, I'm sure you're familiar from like the HR perspective of going through that, and
Absolutely. You know, and I think from a retention perspective, what we found is, you know, we're listening. I think we have to really be careful about getting people together and getting them feeling safe, psychologically safe, and listen to what they need. You know, I find as a recruiter, I hear so much on the front end before they become an employee, what they want in terms of at their next company and their ideal situation. And we take that information and we try to turn it into a reality for them, just from the very beginning of getting to know them. And sometimes we learn things from candidates who don't get hired at Chef, but we really try to take them on a journey and listen to them, and we listen to them regularly. So we have a company all-hands meeting quarterly, but we bring every single person who works for the company, no matter where they live, to Seattle for a full week. And we have a diversity retention meeting to talk about that and just say, like, what do you guys need to feel really good about this? And our CEO will sit in and we have to say, you know, you are only here to listen. You're not here to debate or contest something. You're really here to just kind of take it all in. And you start to get that dialogue going, and these engineers will talk, and they want to learn, and they want to grow, and they want to have a PDP and all, you know, personal development plan that they can create. And they want a mentor, and they want a mentor inside the company, and they want a mentor outside of the company. And you know, and they're really creative with what they're going to tell you. And so we tried to accommodate a lot of that, and it's worked. Oh yeah. It's, you know, but I've given to the point now where I'm just an observer as well. Like, I let it go, and you will be shocked at what comes out. We're also addressing neurodiversity. It's a really big topic, and it includes men and women. And we're starting to hear a lot about, you know, I'm an introvert, I'm an extrovert, I'm scared to speak up in meetings, I'm getting shamed on Slack, how do I overcome that? You know, everyone's telling me to be bold at the table, and yet I can't do that. And so we're starting to have, you know, those dialogues and that conversation as well. But it's really about listening. And I think that's first and foremost in creating that psychologically safe space. And sometimes people will wait to tell you. They may be in the meeting and they don't say anything, and it comes out 4 weeks later that this is what they need. And as a company, we want to hear, and we want to be able to respond, but we also want to treat people fairly.
Right. Yeah, and so to add to that, you know, a couple of things that we've done about, you know, on the listening part is we do 360s, we do anonymous reviews about managers and just the whole management team. And so we just have several ways for employees to give us feedback, and that's, you know, and that's really what worked for us too. And we do course corrections. I mean, it's like a lot of our agenda for 2016 is you know, in terms of culture and the things that we want to focus on is based on the feedback that we got from our employees.
Have either of you run into, I guess, you know, you're opening this up to a forum of leaders being afraid of what would be said or offending people, and how, I mean, are you just going full speed ahead and just letting it take its course, or have there been some, I guess,
there's always missteps.
yeah,
I mean, from everybody, and it's
bold, but
it's
needed, right?
It's needed, and it's amazing how when people realize what's their intent and what's actually being heard are very different sometimes. That conversation then becomes, like, I've had to say, did you realize you cut that person off several times in the meeting? And they're like, oh my God, I had no idea. And, you know, and you're just like, and you can see that the little wheels are going and they're learning as they go, and it's real-time feedback. But again, it's also giving people that opportunity to grow. And I think that's really important.
I think you have
How much of that is just bad social skills?
Great.
I mean,
Great
really,
question.
at a certain point, you're just like, you're an adult and you just haven't been properly trained socially.
To say gender inequality is a bad social skill.
You know, I think it is some of it is bad social skills, and some of it is just correction, course correction as you go. And some of the, we don't have it a whole lot. I mean, there's sometimes when we see it from everybody, we see it, somebody will say, well, little girl, or little man, or something like that, and you're like, that is not appropriate. And that was completely unnecessary. Oh, you're right. And they don't realize. And so a lot of that is just real-time corrections. But I think that because it is such an open environment and we're so transparent about it, I think a lot of times people are far more thoughtful about what they say before they say it too. I don't think they're scared to say anything, because we have course corrections a lot, don't get me wrong. We got a lot to do, a lot to go. We're also doing right now unconscious bias training, and we're bringing that in, and it's super critical to our success in interviewing, but also as a company in general and just in the open meetings. And I think that that is something that our leadership didn't recognize or didn't want to talk about. And it's like, no, we all have unconscious bias. Every one of us, from every culture, from every perspective, and we just have to be able to acknowledge it and start talking about it.
That's a great point. We actually did that about a month ago as well, and that's like, it's been really eye-opening for everybody across the board on recognizing just the bias. I mean, it's like, we all have it, right? We just don't recognize it.
How are you executing that throughout your companies? Is it everyone is required to take a training course, or?
We did this to brown bags, and it was a thing. So it was a sign of
Something we're exploring as well. Yeah, again, just awareness, making sure.
I have a question on the course correction, and I think you mentioned real time, like trying to give that feedback on the spot. And I imagine there's probably a lot of managers in the room. So, and for myself, I'm even thinking, but in the people that I manage, I mean, do you encourage them to address it on the spot, or do you encourage them to come to you to then later go to your equal or colleague and say, by the way, like this is happening, or like what really is the best way to tackle that? If anyone has advice, suggestions, what's worked.
Open it up.
Oh, it's a challenge.
It is a challenge. I mean, I had a situation where a female leader in a leadership meeting was being interrupted and wasn't able to get full thought out, and it was the same person over and over doing it, and all of a sudden I started getting like, Slack and IMs in the middle of the meeting, like, did you just notice that that's the third time this person's done that? And finally I just said, Joe, I'm gonna stop the meeting for a moment and just say, we need to let Nicole finish her sentence. Like and has anybody else noticed it? Because it's becoming apparent. And it was just really interesting because Joe was like, oh, I'm so sorry, and he apologized. And then he did it again, and everyone went, Joe! Like, you just got that feedback! And it was just kind of funny because it became kind of comical, and we tried to, put some humor around it and lighten it up. But it is something that is kind of that lack of social skills that you start to go, oh, don't let that happen. Because we're so distributed as well. People are at home, in their homes, working. And it can happen a lot online. We use a tool called Zoom, and you can have 100 people in one meeting, and you can see all their faces and all their in little boxes, and you can zoom in on one person who's talking, or if they're talking, they become kind of magnified. And it's really interesting because they feel like they're hidden because they're in their home and they don't realize they're on camera, or they forget. And there are times when you start to go, okay, you can't roll your eyes. Like, that is even a problem. Like, you gotta really give everybody the open stage and listen and not have those reactions. And so it's a challenge. I don't think we do it well, but I think we try to do it as often as we can.
It sounds like it's almost like having an advocate around with you, or like someone else that can speak up when you're getting cut off, or vice versa, that we can encourage our teams to do that for each other, like look out for each other.
Well, I think it has to be part of your values, because I think if all of a sudden you just came to a meeting and you were at a table full of people, that it really has to be accepted, and like Wendy said, it has to come from the leadership, and it has to permeate the entire core, the entire culture.
It does, and you have to let people know that it's safe to make a mistake. Like, they're not gonna get fired. They're not gonna get something's not gonna happen. You're gonna get feedback. It's not always gonna be comfortable, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to be better. So I think that's the thing, is you're safe and we're
But
not
that's
gonna
also your culture.
Right.
So you put that out there, and some companies, at the end of the day, they don't want that kind of a culture.
True.
So then that's where you have to make a decision on an individual basis of, is this where I want to be?
I was in a situation where I was supported to speak up for myself, so I think that's really important too, is let the people, because what might bother someone won't bother someone else, and so it's that person's decision, oh, this bothers me. And I was in a situation where I was the only woman in a room with all higher level males, but I was there to lend my expertise for an area. We went around and introduced ourselves and said, oh, and Andrea's here to take notes. And I said, no, I'm here to provide expertise in this area. And my boss supported
refused to
me.
take notes,
Yeah,
right?
I took notes for myself. But yeah, my boss supported me. He knew this was an issue. A scientific environment, lots of old white guys, and so he said, I always have your back if you stand up for yourself.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I've gone into meetings where you have a buddy system, so you plan, for someone who has trouble speaking up, my role was to sort of plant the seed and get this person so that they're comfortable, and especially when dealing with difficult clients too. So we will talk before the meeting about different roles we would play to sort of make the meeting go a little bit smoother.
Strategic. Hand out layups to your colleagues. It's huge.
It is huge.
So we're kind of just finishing up, and then of course we can open it up for questions. But so just maintaining what you guys have done to reach these great accomplishments with diversity in your companies. How do you plan to maintain that over the next 5 years? Do you have any set goals or plan to kind of keep up the momentum?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly from the engineering standpoint, I'd like to see at a minimum a 50% mix between women and men. We're at 30%, so we have a long way to go. I'd like to see a more diverse culture as well in terms of seniority. And so those are my two big goals that I'd like to achieve in the next 12 months.
So that's your role within the organization, that's how you will take charge.
Yeah, and at EnergySavvy, we don't particularly have, I think we already have a really good mix of women and men across the company. Like if you look at our sales team, there's a very good representation of women on our sales side of the house. And so it's less so about getting the entire company, it's really about focusing on engineering and getting the engineering diversity.
From a maintenance perspective, I don't think we're there yet, and we're more aspirational. And so I think it's more about where do we really want to be ultimately, and I think that 50-50 split is huge. We talk about that a lot. I think the other piece is just continuing what we're doing, but continuously improving it, and living, walking the walk and talking the talk. And so making sure that we do an ADA sponsor every quarter, and just continuing to always feel like we are growing the program and developing it in a way that is supported. Now, we're small, and I kind of feel like every single hire changes our percentage. But as you get bigger, every single hire has a less of an impact. And so it's like, okay, well, let's keep our eye on that, and let's make sure that as we're growing, we're really thinking bigger. And so I think that's for us far more aspirational. I will be really honest with you, we don't have that same balance that you have. Like, we don't have any female leaders right now. And that is super challenging because we have so many amazing women who are coming up through the ranks. And so my goals are really about, before we go out and hire externally, looking at internals and that promotability, and really looking at what do we need to do to get these people, everybody, to the next level, and really giving them that opportunity. And sometimes it's a stretch goal and taking a risk as a company and being okay with that risk. And so I think that for us is going to be our big challenge and our big opportunity.
Yeah, No, I totally agree with you. I think the, having more senior women in leadership roles and in senior roles, that balance needs to be better, across the board. And so I think that certainly is a challenge, not just for EnergySavvy, but I kind of see it in the industry as well.
So does anyone around the table have any questions for the audience?
Yeah, it's been really great hearing a lot of these stories and a lot of these great approaches to adding a little more conversations and spaces of like, I guess, dignity and safety within the workplace. I'm very curious about initiatives that either the two of you or maybe people in this room have done towards a broader definition of gender inclusivity, especially for the LGBT community. That's a big issue that's happening right now, especially in these workspaces. It's affecting some friends of mine personally, and it's interesting to hear people who are just amazing, who don't have any issues when it comes to say, well, I've already advanced myself very far in technology, but I've now decided to come out as a woman, and dealing with a lot of many of these issues that I've heard about growing up, but are directly confronted with it. So very curious about the kind of, whether these conversations expand to that definition as well. Initiatives from meetings to building architecture, et cetera, have been also taking place as well. Want to open the conversation from there.
You can start.
Absolutely. It is a bigger problem. I think that getting women into the workforce has more attention than getting more diversity that's outside of women. Isn't as, there aren't as many initiatives as there are on the other end. In ADA, I can tell you that there's two big focuses that we have. So this is outside of EnergySavvy. One is attracting the crowd to know that they have, it's a different support system. So it's not just saying that you're going to have women and you have a support system and that's going to work for everybody else. It's understanding what is needed, and having a support system and having the things to address in that particular community. It's also in the minority community, right? It's like if you look at ADA, we don't have as much representation. We're making a very big effort to bring in Hispanics and Blacks into the classroom. And so it's the issue is about making sure that this opportunity is there for everybody, and there's going to be different support systems to help you succeed inside these environments. In terms of EnergySavvy, I mean, at the moment, we're really looking, we don't really differentiate. I mean, we're looking for great talent. And what we've done is really having our benefits in place. And so that's one of the first things that we did, was really having our benefits in place to be able to address, to have coverage for people who need that. And so, that's as far as we've gone. But with ADA, we recognize a lot of the other issues that are there, and we're finding support systems.
We've done more of a viral kind of organic growth with our LGBT groups. Again, trying to make as much of a psychologically safe environment for everyone and just creating that kind of open environment. But I think that we've let that kind of bubble organically, and it's become a great community within our company. One thing about Chef that you have to understand is our company was based on our community. So a lot of our product was developed by people who don't even work at our company. They were developers from outside who were part of our community because they were customers who loved our product. And so they started to create and develop our product based on what their companies needed, Nordstrom, Disney, Facebook. So we had this great community externally, and what's happened is that's kind of worked in our favor because we leave our doors open. If you come to Chef, the front door is open all the time. And we allow our customers, as well as our community, to come in anytime and have a meeting, use our facilities for whatever they need to do. And it's been really good for us because that's created that very open environment of not only culturally inside the company as an employee, but also to allow our community to interact with everybody. And so that's grown organically, and it's become a really big group for us. Is it perfect? No. But you know what? We support it and we sponsor it and we really try to make sure that they have a place to come meet. And so they've started to do that, and it's terrific for us because it's become a pipeline for us too. And I think that it's, again, one of those things where I'm not trying to capitalize on the situation, but I'm like, wow, there's something to be said for this, because when people feel comfortable coming into an open door and feeling like they're welcome, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, now they might want to work here. And it kind of works in our favor.
It's great.
I'd like to reinforce that, because I come up from this from a brand communication standpoint, from looking at companies from the outside. And one of the things that really helps is when you're working so wonderfully well for your internal picture, and then if you're also projecting that same diversity to people who are from the outside who are looking at you, and this is true, you know, we need to see more images of diversity in every aspect of our culture.
Okay.
The Oscars are one example, right? One very current example. So every image that you portray to the outside world that reinforces your values and your goals for diversity, it gives people who want to come into your organization a quick picture that, oh, you know, this is a place for me. I am welcome here. I can see myself here. So that's something to think about. It's really good.
I have a question. So pay transparency is a tool that some companies use to help with the gender pay gap, but there's a lot of different ways you could do that. Whether it's everyone knows everyone's salaries, or there's just certain ranges and you know where you fall. Have you played with that at all, and what has the result been?
Similar to Buffer, right? Buffer was one that did it. I think there was it Zillow? That was the recent transparent initiative.
Was it?
Yeah.
We're working on it. So that's our ultimate goal, is to be completely transparent, not to publish what people are making, but to publish all of our ranges. And so we've started these PDPs, and we've started to really develop career maps so that people understand, if I'm coming in as a software at this level, I know what the next level looks like and what I need to do to accomplish that next level. And the pay scales are all attached to those career maps. And the career maps really give people an option and an opportunity to really see, okay, I have lots of different paths I can choose, and I can move from path to path. I understand what those ranges are gonna be for each different path, and I can make a decision, and it's more empowering that way. We're not there yet. We're not there to publish all the ranges yet, but we're getting there. Like, we've already given everybody the career maps. And so, and we've talked about it, and we have our one-on-ones, and all of our managers have been coached on that as well. But ultimately, I would say within a year, we're gonna be very transparent about all of our ranges. And we do our compensation reviews quarterly. So we really try to be on top of it, because of the reality in this market. It is so competitive, and we have a very low attrition rate based on the industry, but we know that could change in a heartbeat. And so we look at that and go, you know what, the more transparent and open we can be with people, the more open they're gonna be with us. If something's not working for them from a career perspective or a comp perspective, we wanna know it. Like, I wanna know if you're working for me, if I'm not paying you enough and you're gonna go look across the street or look at another company, I wanna be able to fix that long before you start looking. And so that's our goal ultimately, but we're not there yet. It's hard. That's a tough one.
Yeah, we're in a similar stage. We're calling it leveling, and so we also want to get to a place where we're being transparent and having. I think we certainly have career maps and goals. We have goals every quarter. We look at comp every quarter for every single employee. We look, we make sure that we're in the right set. We are not paying or overpaying. We're really making sure that we're being fair across the board. But we will certainly get to a place in the next 12 months where we are being transparent about the levels and the pay ranges for those levels. I wouldn't say I don't see us. I haven't completely thought through what it would be to be completely transparent to the actual numbers that each person makes. I think that's a bigger cultural and leap to make. And so I think we're certainly will look into it and look at the benefits versus. It's one of those things, right? Which is it's like vacation. There's certain companies that have a certain PTO, and there's certain companies that say open vacation policy. They both have their pros and cons, and so it really depends on what are your priorities and what problems are you trying to solve. And so, and I think that will be something that we look at if that becomes an issue and something that we need to solve. But I have done ranges in the past when I was at bigger companies, and I have certainly shared ranges of what the pay grade looks like, and the quartiles that that you kind of fall into, and what you need to go, not just jump from pay grades, but jump from one quartile to the other. And people like that, and that transparency is really, really good, and I would encourage everybody to do that.
And you can at least benchmark yourself according to your peers. I mean, if you want to get to a certain level, you know what their tasks are. I have read, just from Buffer, they do social media scheduling, but when the company decided to go fully transparent, of course, you're going to have your group of employees who are just not for it. They'll quit the company. It's a big change. And again, that comes down to, I think, the values that are originally instilled in the company's culture. But yeah, as long as it's communicated through down from the top, then it's for the better of the company.
And I think there's two shifts that have to happen in parallel. There is this huge movement for women and more diverse crowds, but there's a huge cultural shift. So, Chef has always been so forward-thinking and so open, but that is your culture, that's your founders, that's your values. I think having that movement with larger organizations or certain industries is going to be more challenging. But that's also, I think, going to go hand in hand with hiring and attracting talent and retaining talent, at least in a strong market.
Absolutely.
How does someone start to advocate more like from the middle of the company hierarchy for different organizational priorities? Excuse me.
Well, I guess, speaking of,
Any of you, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm not on an executive level, but someone that's been there for a while and kind of been involved in, we've had a lot of internal, I guess, employee-led initiatives, such as sort of getting to social responsibility, giving back to our community, and setting a platform for women at the company to kind of feel safe and supported. But I guess we are kind of, we're so focused on growth, and we have our all hands, we're all about transparency when it comes to revenue numbers. We do talk about we celebrate the initiatives that have been internally formed, but I think that sometimes, for me, it's like I don't really know how to pitch the idea, or maybe I know my E-team is already talking about these conversations. They're constantly talking about, the benefits and making sure everyone feels supported and diversity is addressed. But are there any transparent goals that are announced at the all hands meetings? Not yet. So I think right now I've just kind of been working with my colleagues to see what we can do to make sure that employees are feeling that there's like an open forum for communication.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it all depends on stage of the company and what problems you're trying to solve and what your priorities are. If it is a concern for your employees, then I think having that dialogue would be a useful thing.
I was wondering, how long did it take you to go from 3% to 28%?
2 years.
2 years.
Yep.
How about you, from 3 women to 30%?
About 3 years.
It's a journey, and it's hard. And like I said, once you start to get to a point where, we've got small numbers, and so every hire can make, like 1 month you could see your percentage go way up because you hired lots of diverse candidates, and then all of a sudden it could go way down because, it just depends. And so it's like watching the stock market. I try not to get people to watch it too closely, but we do track it, and we've even put it out on Indeed in our diversity, like we've publicized it. And but it's a challenge, and I think when people understand that that's a big priority for us, and internally as well as externally, they're willing to help too. I mean, they want to be part of it, and it's really interesting to watch. I've also noticed that, like, here I am trying to hire women leaders, right? You have women lead. Some of my biggest challenges and areas of obstacle are women who have been in that leadership position, who have been in the industry for 25 years and are used to being the only woman in the room, and they're not gonna help me. They don't wanna have anything to do with it. They're just like, you know, I gotta stay the course. And they don't wanna become the feminist of the company or whatever. And yet at the same time, we're like, no, this is your opportunity. We want you to speak up and feel comfortable, but if you don't want to participate, that's okay too. I think what happens is, like, we went out and started sponsoring women to become, get mentors outside of the company and executive coaches, and really give them the kind of that platform to really grow and develop. And pretty soon, some of the women who were kind of against it are now going, sign me up, I want whatever she's having. And it's kind of funny to see it now starting to make a difference.
You both talked about different types of diversity initiatives, like I think you guys both talked about unconscious bias training, which I think is great. Have you been able to measure which initiatives actually work versus don't work, or are you just looking at the numbers collectively? Because I know that's been a topic that's been kind of talked about regarding diversity.
It's so early.
Yeah.
It's so early to be able to, I hate putting numbers on things. We're very metric centric, don't get me wrong, and I measure things up and down and sideways. But at the end of the day, I think it's more about, again, what are the employees? And how is that dialogue being addressed, and what's the
feedback? Do you do like surveys within your employees to see if you can measure it within the employee base? Okay.
Yeah, and we do an inclusion survey.
Okay.
So we don't even do, like, I don't go out and say, what did you think about unconscious bias training? Sure, that's something we do, but we actually are like, when did you feel most included? What was the point of your guide here? And so we start to get some real numbers around that, but also straight feedback. Like, I felt really included, and it's funny, you get feedback, and people will be like, I felt really included when I was asked to speak at this meeting, or I was asked to present, or I was asked to mentor somebody. And I didn't think we have a lot of kind of imposter syndrome, and we've had speakers on that as well, we've had a lot of speakers. But just to get people over that fear of, so we do ask, but we ask it in different ways.
Yeah, the answer is pretty similar. It's too early to kind of like measure a particular situation. It's more about asking surveys. It's getting help. It's getting a check on health.
Okay.
The team. And yeah, at this point, if we get our numbers, I'd be happy.
Well, thank you everyone for